Talks. I'm your guest host this evening, Ted Owens. Maya Schneider could not be here. I have with me Ruth Hall, who is the president of the Truckee Friends of the Library. Ruth, good to have you here.
It's great to be here, Ted. Thank you.
Good to have you. Before we get into the discussion of Measure C, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how long you've been up here, and what's your story, Ruth?
Well, Ted, I moved up here 25 years ago and was living in San Francisco. I had some friends up here who asked me to come up, check out Truckee, and they were opening a bookstore, and I was lucky enough to help them start their venture, and I've been here ever since.
Now, you had a love of books before then?
Oh, that's true. I was raised in Detroit. I was a great reader, very much adored reading, and I found my public library as soon as I could walk practically, and I spent a lot of time there when I was growing up. I was an English literature major in college, and books have just been a big part of my life. I actually married a writer. That was one of the steps along the way, and when I got to Truckee, my daughter and I found the library right away and met the wonderful staff there and spent a lot of time at the Truckee Library, where we've been borrowing books ever since.
Well, how long, now you got involved with the library, but how long has the Friends of the Library as an organization existed?
Well, the Friends of the Library actually sort of morphed out of an earlier group that the group was composed of a group of women who wanted a public library in Truckee, and they actually advocated to the county and the state and got the funding to build the first Truckee Library. That group eventually led to the formation of the Friends of the Library, and I would say since the late 60s there has been an advocacy group in Truckee.
Oh, great. And you've been involved with that particular organization for?
I've been involved for about 11, 12 years, and I found out about it from the librarian at the Truckee Library, who was very concerned about diminishing services, and he wanted the Friends, which had become kind of dormant at that time, to become more of a political force and to start raising awareness of the need for more library services and hours and that sort of thing. So that's how we started.
Now this concern, this is really what Measure C was born out of.
Right.
Isn't that correct?
Yes. From the time that I joined Friends, it seemed kind of a downhill course to almost the closure of the Truckee Library. And so Friends of the Library became kind of a political lobbying group, and we went to the county supervisors, we went to the town council, we tried to let the public know that services were going. Prop 13, which is living in infamy today, was one of the main causes of the loss of funding to counties for some of these county services. Counties are only funded out of the general fund, and when the general fund diminishes, the library's services diminish. I think a lot of people believe that libraries, like public schools, are part of a legislative sort of right.
They're guaranteed.
They're guaranteed.
They'll always be here.
But
right.
That's not the case. Libraries can disappear and nobody will care unless the community cares.
Well, let's talk about Measure C.
Okay.
That's what we're here to discuss for everyone this evening. And now you've gotten it on the ballot, which
Yes.
is a tough job. Tell
Yes.
me a little bit about that. That's not easy.
No. We actually first put a tax initiative on the ballot 4 years ago that was Measure B for books, and that basically came out of a citizen's effort to save the libraries, and so the committee put this measure before the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors supported it, and we have had a 1/8 cent sales tax in Nevada County to support all the libraries for the past 4 years.
Now Truckee,
Right.
77% of the voters
Right.
actually supported that tax increase
Exactly.
as well.
Yes, we are very fortunate to live in a town like Truckee where libraries are a really important service for the community and are really supported by the town. 77% of the Truckee voters voted for Measure B and basically carried the county. We're looking for the same percentage this time. And
now, is there anything tell us about Measure C? What are the differences? What are the similarities?
Measure C is a duplicate of Measure B. It's an extension of Measure B. The only difference is that the first time around we went for a 5-year tax measure, and because the years have passed so quickly and because there are no other sources of funding besides a very small amount from Nevada County, we have decided to put the tax measure in operation for the next 15 years so that we don't have to keep coming back to the voters.
Right, so ultimately it's a renewal.
It's
measure,
a renewal,
but
yes.
for a longer term
Yes,
this time
exactly.
around. And now we have some plans. Well, let's talk first off, before we get to the expansion of the library.
Right.
I mean, what's Measure C going to cost?
Oh, okay. Well, Measure C is a sales tax, and we chose a sales tax rather than a property tax because a sales tax is an equitable sort of burden for the community. It's shared by everyone, and it's not just a home burden. The sales tax is paid by tourists and locals and anybody that's visiting up here, and the 1/8 cent has produced a tremendous amount of revenue. In Nevada County, it produces between $1.2 and $1.3 million a year, and for the percentage that comes back for the Truckee Library, that's a huge resource for our library.
Now, Ruth, because it's a voter initiative, because the voters are voting on it, it would be protected by any kind of a shift the legislature might do in the future, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So it's not in perpetuity, but guaranteed for 15 years.
Yes, exactly.
Now, I think it's important for everyone at home to also realize that you're not completely reliant upon taxes that you're receiving.
Right.
Actually, you're quite engaged in other fundraising activities.
Yes. Yep.
We were talking before the program
Right.
began about your book donation program.
Exactly. When I first started with Friends of the Library, the actually main and only event that the Friends were involved in was a yearly used book sale, which happens every summer, and residents donate their used books, and we sell them at the library, usually in August, and that produces about $3,000. We've done a lot of other kinds of fundraisers as well. We have a local poetry group, the Jaboom Street Poets, who put on a poetry read every spring. That has generated revenue for the library. We've had a lot of other programs, music, theater, speakers, all kinds of events that we have charged admission to. We have local authors and visiting authors that do book signings and donate a portion of the book sales for the for these book events to our library. And we have a large group of supporters, members of Friends of the Library that pay dues and often give us a donation with their dues.
Now let's talk about that for
Right.
just a moment. I don't think we have that number
Okay.
up on the screen. But can they get in? Can people at home get in touch with Friends of the Library
yeah.
if they wish to join through the
Yep.
Truckee Library number?
Definitely.
Why don't we put that up there?
Call the Truckee Library to find out about the Friends of the Library at 582-7846. And
We'll show that again
yeah.
before we're done.
Besides donating funding, we also are lucky to have a great group of volunteers at our library, and the volunteers do all kinds of things that assist the librarians and the staff, including shelving books, fixing books, cleaning books. We have a gentleman who has been working for many years putting our shelving together and putting furniture together and helping with a lot of that sort of thing.
Well, who is he?
His name is Roger.
Roger. Okay,
And
well,
I'm
Roger,
sorry,
Roger deserves. I know I put you on the spot, but Roger deserves that as
Yes,
name up there.
and we have gardeners who keep maintained. Sal Bulkley started that with a group of other citizens here, and we have the Tinkerbells now that are helping maintain it. We have tons of help.
Let's talk about the book sale. I want to go back to that. Before we went on the air, you were telling me, Ruth, that you have some storage problems because people want to donate
Right.
books when it's convenient for them,
Right.
which is inconvenient really for you when you
Right.
have your sale once a year.
Right.
So it's possible that you could spend enough money on storage to offset what you're trying to earn with your
Exactly.
book. So really the community, you might want
Right.
to look to the community
Sure.
for some way to solve that
Right.
problem.
Back in the old days when the library was serving a smaller community, we had more space for storage, and we used to store books all year for our book sale. As it stands now, we have hardly any books or room rather for new books. So we're only able to receive older books in July when the book sale is approaching. So if anybody out there has some storage space that they would like to donate to the library to store boxes of books, we would be very grateful. It would help us make more money for the library. We raise around $3,000 every August. And
But storage can eat that up real quick.
Storage can eat it up, so we don't want to spend that money.
And I understand you do some other fundraising by approaching service groups like the Rotaries and what have you?
Yes, and we've gotten help from service groups. And, you know, I think that one thing that a lot of people may not know is that people with second homes up here are some of our greatest supporters. They come from the place where they live and they become attached to our library. Some of them come in every morning and they read the stock reports, you know, in the publications we have or over the internet.
Well, you have internet, and that's another service that I didn't really realize that the library offers is internet service for, you know, when people are out of town, they don't have their computers, but they can go into the library. Yes,
definitely. People are communicating in all sorts of ways on our computers. We also have, you know, with our large population of folks that work at ski areas that are here from other countries, it's a way for them to communicate back home. We have a lot of people that come in and read newspapers. We have a large newspaper collection, periodicals, consumer reports, the Blue Book for your used car, you know, landscaping books, travel books. There are just so many aspects of the library that are interesting to our community.
And for young kids, I know a lot of folks with young kids check out videos and movies, which
books
is
on
also
tape.
Books on tape.
Books on tape is huge. That, you know, we have a lot of commuters, people that are driving back and forth to the Bay Area, and they are really utilizing our books on tape collection. And as far as little children go, one of the big improvements Measure B money was all the programming we were able to do. We have 2 librarians now. We had no librarians that were master's level librarians before the tax measure.
Raises a question, was the Measure B money specifically allocated, or did the library have free reign with using those monies in whatever
No, there are
way?
definitely conditions on the tax measure as they are on Measure C this time. The tax money can only be used for the operations of the library, so that would be hiring the staff, getting resources for our library, all the books on tape and our book collections, and the money can't be used for capital improvements. So for capital improvements, we are using county money. And
so you've given me my segue into the next section.
Exactly.
Because you have an expansion, a library expansion plan, which you symbolically broke ground on.
Yes.
2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe. And there were a lot of people that were involved in making that a reality. I think Don McCormick, Josh Sussman, Barbara Green. So that's the good news.
Yes.
The difficult news is you only got 1 bid on it so far, or during the bid process.
Right. We are in the process of putting together this addition for the library that's going to add about 1,000 square feet, which will be used for children's programs and give us more space inside the library for other programs. We were on a short timeline when we released the bid, or the county released the bid. There wasn't a long period of time to respond. We think that was one of the factors that led to the fact that we only received 1 bid on the library edition. So we are going to re-release the proposal and accept bids. I think it will be released around November, the beginning of November. And all you contractors out there, please take a look at the plans for the library edition. You can.
Well, I'd like also to point out, though, that the Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe, CAT, has a set of plans. They've obtained a set from the county, and they're available for bid purposes. So CAT members can contact CAT at 550-9999 to get a hold of the plans. Now, there's going to be a bid process and a time period again. And this is a project that would hopefully begin in the spring of next summer.
We want to start the first day of construction. What day is that, Ted? You know that day?
I do know that day, and a woman's in charge of that, Mother Nature. It makes it extremely difficult to gauge when that day is going to occur. It kind of depends on the weather and what have you. But certainly you're in a controlled environment downtown. It might be a little bit a different situation. Now, the bids can be adjusted, or your county allocation can be adjusted when realistic bids come in. That was a difficulty, wasn't it, having just one?
We have put aside a certain amount of funding for the project. We can adjust that funding if we need to. We really need to see how the bids come in. And you know, the tax revenue that we have generated has freed up the county money to support the project. And we have basically had a really firm commitment from Nevada County to do this project. So I see no reason for it to be, you know, stalled once we get a few bids.
Okay, so there's the challenge for the community.
Right.
There is to, for contractors out there, general contractors, to pick up the lead in this and please bid the project. It's a good cause.
And we really, the first thing that needs to happen is Measure C needs to pass on November 5th, because without Measure C, we would have to operate the entire library system on $565,000. That is a small portion of the, when you add it to the 1.3 million that we have been running the library on, you can see that if we don't pass Measure C, we would have to almost close the library. So everything is predicated on the extension of this sales tax, and I'm counting on Truckee.
Well, you know, your signs have been everywhere.
Yes.
I mean, and but I'm quite sure that people were wondering, you know, what the lowdown is on the whole thing. Now,
right.
Who's endorsing Measure C?
Well, Ted, who isn't endorsing Measure C? I mean, I actually have not run into a single person from the time we started to talk about the tax measure 4 or 5 years ago. I haven't run into a single person who opposed it and haven't heard anything of that sort. So I'm very optimistic.
Once again, I think it's important just to state it one more time. Measure C is not an additional tax.
Right.
It's a continuance of a tax that 77% of Truckee residents supported 5 years ago. And we're asking that that be continued for 15 years so we don't have to go through the ballot process, which costs time and money. And so it really is a no net effect to anyone, any member of our community to continue to support it.
No, I think it's pretty painless. I don't think people notice the 1/8 of a cent when they're shopping. And when you look at the benefit that comes from it, we have 6-month-old children in the library right now who are learning what books are. We've been able to expand children's programming to include infants all the way through teenagers, and our library is packed with excited children and adults who are, you know, really loving the services we have now. So I think we just want to continue and get better.
Well, okay, and right now you've got a lot of different programs. You talked. What are the most popular programs?
The most popular programs, well, the children's program this summer I thought was pretty unique. They did this kind of, it was a road trip across the United States, and the kids were reading books pertaining to the geography and, you know, the states that are in our country, et cetera. And when they would reach milestones, they would get prizes and that sort of thing. And I think that the library staff has been so innovative in kind of coming up with, you know, that sort of program that really piques kids' interest while they're really learning something. As far as, you know, the programs that are new because of the tax, the literacy program has really been amazing. We have probably 47 or 50 families now that are getting literacy services, and those are, a lot of them are Latino families who are learning to read English. And you know, this service is so excellent because people go into homes and it's a private kind of thing. People aren't embarrassed.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I just in fact wrote that down. I'm curious. Do you carry books in Spanish, for example?
Yes.
As well?
Yes, and actually recently we had a preschool that came in. It was the Truckee State Preschool, and it's a group of families, about 42 families, where the parents and children all came in the library, and the kids got library cards, the parents were there. They saw all the books in Spanish and English, and
for some of these kids, I would imagine this is the first time
and I think that, you know, unless we help people access those kinds of services, they don't really know
that they're
those,
there.
yeah, that they're for them and that they have books in their own language. And we have a really good collection in Spanish now. That was one of our goals. We've received some other grants as well. I should say that the literacy program is funded by a state literacy grant that augments the other fundings that we get. As far as other programs, we also provide services for seniors who can't get to the library, and we deliver books. We have volunteers who deliver and pick up books for the seniors. We have large print books for folks who are a little disabled in terms of sight. We have services for, like, I would say almost every population and age group, you know, in Truckee.
Does the library augment or work with or close any gaps with the school libraries?
That's a good question. Every fall, all the kindergarten classes come over to the library, and you know, the kids are introduced to the collection. They are shown how to get library cards, and some of the kids have been there, some of them may not have been there, so that's a good exposure for the children. Preschool groups come in and use the library. We also have a lot of homework augmentation services. We have the computers that the kids can use after hours, and they can go into the Encarta and look up things, you know, in the encyclopedias. There are lots of materials on, like, California missions and Native Americans, because those are two units that elementary schools always study, and we have a lot of supportive materials.
So I'll throw one at you.
Okay.
You ready for a curve?
Uh-oh.
You know the McIver Dairy?
Yes.
The town worked with CAT a few years ago to do that, you know,
I
painting
remember that.
restoration and the re-roofing of it, but we've been having some discussions about what to do with it. And I've always kind of thought about the little tykes and getting them involved and making a working dairy for a day
gosh,
type of
fun.
thing. But I don't know if there's something there with some of the education programs with the library, but maybe we might be able to talk about.
To do like an interactive kind of educational thing. That sounds...
On some local
right.
history.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Let's talk.
Now we'll do that after the camera goes off. But I think it's important one more time. We're talking about support for Friends of the Library, Measure C, on the ballot on November 5th. And also, we've had a very broad discussion on the library this evening. So if Fletch, if you could put the phone number back up for the folks at home, if you have any questions or you're interested in any of the programs at the Truckee Library, 582-7846 is the number to call. And of course, we're here tonight because we're asking for your support on Measure C on November 5th.
Definitely.
If the rest of the ballot doesn't interest you, I would highly recommend you getting out to vote for Measure C. And any added thoughts?
Well,
we have just a couple of minutes here.
Any added thoughts?
How do you feel about it? You think it's going to go okay?
Oh, I'm feeling really optimistic. I think that you know, the town has only gotten more supportive, and I just, you know, see people every day that are so grateful for the library services, and I just think the quality of people who live in this area sort of predict a very, you know, optimistic outcome for this sort of thing. And
I think there's a great deal of support for it. And so I think that what I heard tonight is we need support for Measure C on the ballot. Anyone in the community that might have or can provide some assistance in storage of books that are donated for the annual fundraiser, which is held in August, but people donate throughout the year, would help the library tremendously.
And if you haven't, there are people, I do run into people who haven't been to the library. Please stop by and check it out. It actually is a architectural, of architectural interest up here. And unfortunately, I forgot to bring the name of the architect, but he built several commercial buildings, and the Truckee Library has a special resonance for people who know architecture. And it has some very interesting stained glass, and it's a kind of an unusual place.
And some of that's being carried on in the new design as well.
Not to mention the books and everything in it, and our wonderful staff. So come on in.
On that, the expansion, because we have only a few seconds, a challenge to CAT, get out and bid, get out and vote. And
thank you so much, Ted.
You're very
and
welcome.
Channel 6, this is a great opportunity, and I really appreciate
very timely.
being here.
Thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
time out of your day to come in and talk about it.
Thank you, and thank you to this great crew.
Doing a good job.
Yep.
And I'll be back in just a moment with the remainder of Truckee Talks. We'll be back in just a minute. Thank you.
All right.
The Truckee Tahoe Community Foundation is helping to make a difference.
Truckee Tahoe Community Foundation promotes philanthropy and inspires action to build our community. We steward gifts and grants that encompass the environment, education, arts, health and human services, civic and public benefits, youth development, and recreation.
The Truckee Donner Land Trust depends on partners like the Truckee Tahoe Community Foundation to help us achieve our goal of preserving and protecting open space.
Everywhere that we look to grow, the foundation is there to help us.
Contributing has tax advantages and is made simple.
The foundation makes it easy for you to give back to the community. They have the expertise and the knowledge that the community needs to make this an easy process.
Find out how you can make a difference.